What's up, people? Man, we got some amazing Overwatch this past week. Season 2 of Overwatch League had its first stage playoffs where we saw the top 8 teams battle it out tournament style. The quarterfinal matches were best of 5 and the rest were best of 7. As soon as one team wins enough maps, that's it, the game's over and they move on. I'll be recapping all the matches right now, so make sure you like the video if you're excited and let's jump into this. The first 2 quarterfinals matches were on Thursday, and first up was Seoul Dynasty versus New York Excelsior. NYXL was the undefeated 2nd seed and Seoul was the underdog at the 7th seed. Everyone expected NYXL to blow them out of the water. It was pretty much a given in everyone's mind that it would be NYXL versus Vancouver in the finals. But all the brackets got flipped upside down when Seoul came out with a 3-1 victory. This is absolutely massive because up to this point NYXL looked pretty much unstoppable. And to be honest, it wasn't even that close of a match. The Dynasty won the first map Ilios 2-0, and they were playing what some people would call their B team, which is like Marvel on main tank and all those guys, but they popped off. It seems like Seoul just practices with this team on control point maps like Ilios, and it worked out really well for them. But then they switched off to their other team with Fisher, Jexay, Michelle, and they popped off too. Jonak was still looking like a god on the New York side, but it just wasn't enough to carry his team. Fleta was getting insane numbers on Zarya, Fisher was getting 6 shatters. It was just an awesome match, and I'm so happy that Seoul was able to win here because it shows the mortality of New York. Now moving on to the next match, we had Boston Uprising versus Vancouver Titans. And again, people thought it's going to be a huge blowout. Vancouver, undefeated best team in the league. Boston barely squeaked in 8th place. But people were putting faith in Fusions, the main tank for Boston Uprising, saying he might be able to come up with some type of strategy to defeat Vancouver. Well, it turns out that's exactly what didn't happen. In fact, I would say Boston got royally slaughtered, to be honest. They just kind of tried to beat Vancouver at their own game, and the Titans just kind of laughed it off like, what are you even doing here, kid? Get out of here. The only players that were even competitive in their matchups were Color Hex versus Somin Su on Zarya, and Aim God versus Twilight on Zen. Boston just pretty much got rolled. Huge disappointment, but at the end of the day it was expected. Vancouver took the win 3-0. Then on Friday we had the middle of the pack teams for the remainder of the quarterfinals matches. First was Atlanta Reign versus Philadelphia Fusion. I actually predicted this one to go in the way of Atlanta because I thought they would pop off in the playoff situation. And after the first map I thought it was actually going to come true because they took Ilios 2-1. Surprisingly, Philly wasn't ready for their Torb strat. I don't really know why, because that's literally all they've done on Ilios. I guess it's just because they're using Sado, so they're pretty much forced to play Winston Goats regardless. Anyway, after that the rest of the maps went to Philly, and it ended up being 3-1 victory for them. This was a statement win because a lot of people were saying Philly's not as good as their record looked, myself included, because their stage 1 schedule was pretty weak, let's be honest. And they're a super inconsistent team that tends to play up or down to their opponents, so if they're facing a good opponent they'll play really well, and if they're facing a bad opponent they'll play really poorly. Atlanta is kind of the same way, so it was an interesting matchup. But like I said, Philadelphia ended up taking the win. Then rounding out the quarterfinals was the San Francisco Shock versus Toronto Defiant. This was a match a lot of people were looking forward to because San Francisco's seeding was a little lower than they really deserved, and Toronto was a very solid team that people tend to sleep on, so it was honestly hard to say which one would come out victorious. I kinda wasn't willing to jump on the San Francisco Shock hype train just yet, so I thought Toronto would take it. But the Shock definitely shocked me. They proved me completely wrong and took the win 3-0. That's pretty much the story of this week actually. San Francisco is way better than I thought. They really planned ahead and got all this young talent, trained it up, and now I think they're finally starting to pop off. Other than Kings Row, the matches were actually pretty close individually, but it seemed like Toronto Defiant almost kind of choked under the pressure. So yeah, I got 3 of the 4 matches wrong. Maybe I should just stop making predictions. At least in this video I don't have to because, well, there's no more games for this stage. Anyway, moving on to the next round was Seoul Dynasty, Vancouver Titans, Philadelphia Fusion, and San Francisco Shock. The bracket got reseeded so that the top team would face the lowest rated team in the semifinals. That means Vancouver Titans versus Seoul Dynasty was up first. And after their win against New York, everyone was super hyped on Seoul. They thought they might actually be able to do it against Vancouver. And while most of the maps were pretty competitive, they ended up losing 4-0. In terms of player versus player matchups, Seoul actually held their own pretty well. Most of the stats don't look one-sided at all. It just came down to a few team fights that Vancouver was able to clutch out. At the end of the day, I think it just came down to Vancouver being the more coordinated team, which is the result of them playing together for so long. And despite the stats being kind of close, they definitely didn't lose any confidence. In fact, on the third map, Temple of Anubis, they were so confident they would win that they had Bumper, their main tank player, on Hanzo. I mean, the guy couldn't even climb a wall, but they ended up winning anyway. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly. So at this point now, it was 7 straight map wins for Vancouver. They hadn't lost a single map in the playoffs, and they were moving on to the finals. And the second match on Thursday between the San Francisco Shock and Philadelphia Fusion would decide who went up against them. And actually, I would say that this match was even more one-sided than the last one. The Shock did the same thing as Vancouver, winning 4 maps in a row and winning their second match without losing a map. This one was worse though because the Fusion literally only scored points on Horizon Lunar Colony. The rest of the maps were all goose eggs. Like I mentioned earlier, the Shock are just so powerful, they made a statement this week for sure. And this goes back to the inconsistency thing with Philly. They looked really good against Atlanta, but they couldn't do anything against San Francisco. Boombox actually had a pretty good match. It shows why they did so bad during the regular season when they didn't have him. And I called them out on Twitter telling them to play Fraggy, just unleash the Fraggy, man, but they didn't do it, and they lost 4-0. Don't get me wrong, I know Sato is a great main tank, but I really just wanted to see Fraggy give it a go, and I'm disappointed we didn't get to. So there it was, we had the finals set up for Sunday between the San Francisco Shock and the Vancouver Titans. I decided to make one last prediction right before the match on Twitter, and I was actually right on the money. I had a feeling this match was going to be insane, and oh my god, it was intense! First map on Nepal, Vancouver takes the first round. I'm like, oh no, they're just gonna roll them, this is over. But then San Francisco comes back and wins the map. Vancouver gets to choose the next map, and they choose Numbani, and they completely slaughter them. They first held them, it was absurd. The Shock picked Temple of Anubis, an insanely close match. So many clutch plays coming out from the San Francisco Shock, especially one really sick combo at the end. Oh my god, I can't get over it. I was freaking out in my room by myself. Sinatra hit a massive grab and Choi sent in the self-destruct and got a huge triple kill. They were able to take the point and they won the map. And oh my god, throughout the whole series, Super was hitting the most massive shatters. And he was blocking all of Bumper's. Usually it's the opposite story when you're talking about Bumper. I was just so impressed by San Francisco's ability to take their aggressive playstyle up against Vancouver and do well. Anyway, then it was map 4 and again Vancouver won pretty dominantly. But map 5, Ilios, another control map, 2-1 again for San Francisco. It seems like the Shock are better at taking capture points and Vancouver's better at pushing payloads. So at this point San Francisco's got game point on their hands, 3-2. All they need to do is win one more map, and the next one is Vancouver's choice and it's King's Row. They put on a thriller, but Vancouver was able to squeak it out, so we went to the final map, Rialto. The Shock pushed first and they finished the map with a decent time bake, so I was like, oh my god, they're actually gonna win. They're gonna beat the Vancouver Titans. But Vancouver came back with a massive push. I think they set a world record or something on Rialto, I don't know. But oh my god, guys, it was insane. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. After their attack round, their advantage was so massive, it was basically over already. The Shock got another chance to push, but they didn't even cap first, and Vancouver had so much time left in their bank, it was over. They had to hold like 8 teamfights in a row if they wanted to win. It was never gonna happen. I mean, they did a pretty good job, all things considered, but in the end, it was Vancouver Titans taking the victory for Stage 1. Disappointing loss for San Francisco, but they put on a clinic. They should be super proud of what they did. This was probably the best match in Overwatch League history, and I think the Titans really deserved it after going 7-0 in this stage. I'm super excited to watch both of these teams in Stage 2 and see if anybody can finally defeat the Vancouver Titans. But for now, they sit at the top as our Stage 1 champions. And that does it for this video. No predictions this week because the stage is over, as I said before. But don't worry, I'll be uploading my predictions before the start of the next stage, so make sure you subscribe and don't miss it. I'm also working on another big project that I'm super excited to share with you guys, so keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, check out some of my other videos, share them with your friends, and until we meet again, later people!